Welcome YouTube to another D&D Fridays. Today we'll be taking a look at another character deep dive. Interested in a little character that we got planned for today. Something that you probably don't see too often. Monk Barbarian. But before we get into the deep dive, let's not forget to hit the subscribe button and comment down below on what you think about it. Without further ado, let's get to it. Starting off with, we want to start off with a monk, particularly to really get the unarmed fighting style from level 1, so we can really start hitting with our fist. As it's probably not going to be doing too much damage at this level, but eventually we're really going to want to be attacking with our fist. That way we don't have to worry about magic items and stuff like that. However, you can use a weapon if you really want to. You'll just be really losing out on the bonus action attack from granted by the martial arts feature. So that's primarily the reason for wanting to go all fisticuffs. And plus, having a proficiency index could help out quite a bit, but con saves are also pretty good if you rather go with Barbarian level 1. Other than that, nothing really too significant with level 1. Coming up next, we'll see what we're really looking at is Monk 4 Barbarian 1. So basically what the Barbarian will give us is it's going to give us a little bit extra HP since we're going to have the D12 hit die really for that level. But the second thing is it's going to be giving us our rage. So as long as we're not wearing heavy armor, which we're not, we're going to be able to get all that juicy stuff from rage just as a simple bonus action, which giving up our first turn bonus action isn't going to be too much of a hindrance as we gain resistance to several different damage types. And as long as we're going to be gaining a little bit of extra damage, as long as we're using strength, which we will. So that's one of the big things that we do get from rage. And the other thing that we get from Barbarian is a better unarmored defense. So we're going to be really using our 10 plus dex modifier plus con modifier as we're going for more of a tanky monk type of build with this. So we're not going to be worrying about wisdom at all outside of the get it to 13, leave it at 13.
I like the idea of adding a level of barbarian to your monk for the rage because it gives you something else to do with your bonus action so that you don't eat up all of your key points with unarmed strikes immediately, right? You can use a bonus action to rage and take that bonus action, wait till the next turn to use your key points. And then I really like this idea of upping your unarmored defense because depending on how you build your monk, you might be somewhat weak in the first part of the game. So I like this. This is very intriguing.
And then from going 4 levels of monk, we get a few things. First, we get our monastic tradition. So there's a couple of different options that we could do. So the few that come to mind that we could choose is we could go Sun Soul if we want to punch out some radiance, if we need some range on our attacks. We could go Kensei Monk if we do want to do a little bit of weapons. Or we could go Mercy Monk for a little bit of added healing and damage. I think for this particular build, I would probably go with Sun Soul just to have those sort of ranged attacks if we need them. But like I said, either Kensei Monk or Mercy Monk are two great choices and probably mechanically stronger than the Sunso Monk option.
I was going to say I would probably lean towards the Mercy Monk because you've got the ability to heal yourself using one of your unarmed strikes, right? And if you're going to be, if this is a slightly tankier build, you might need to, it lets you swing with one fist and then, boop, all right, healed myself a little bit too. So, but I think all three options are viable.
Yeah, I think so. I think they all offer maybe like a slightly different play style, with whether it's adding some situational thing or whatever. But I think all three offer something pretty good. I think we could probably check out the Mercy Monk and see how that plays with this tank build. And and like you mentioned, so with the Mercy Monk, it gives us a couple of things. With the Hand of Healing, pretty much as an action, we at this level we can use a key point to touch somebody to give a little bit of added healing, and we can replace one of our flurry blows with Hand of Healing, which is good. Or if we want to do a little bit more damage, we could use the Implements of Mercy, or not Implements of Mercy, Hand of Harm. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Basically, whenever we hit somebody with an unarmed strike, use a key point, deal extra little bit of necrotic damage equal to a roll of martial arts die plus wisdom modifier, which isn't going to be a lot at this level, but it's going to ramp up a bit at later levels. For the ability score improvement, there's a couple options that we could do. We're probably going to cover both options eventually, but I think what we need to do is we definitely need a lot of ASIs. I think the first one we want to do is to up our strength a bit, because that's going to be our main attack and score. So we definitely want that to be pretty high. So let's take a look to see what we're looking at the moment. So right now we're looking at a 15 AC, which is probably middle of the road for this level. But however, we're looking at a 16 strength for our attack and stat, which isn't terrible at this level. And we're looking at a 16 constitution, which leads us to 55 HP, which for a level 5 character is pretty decent, to say the least. Although I do have to say that part of that HP calculation does come from being a variant human and picking up the tough feat right at level 1. So that's really adding at this level an extra 10 HP. So that's really helping to bridge the gap from going as a mostly monk class, as monks generally only have a D8 hit die as opposed to D10, D12 from all the other martial characters.
Right. Having those extra 10 HP is really nice.
Yep. And being sort of like tank character, more HP is always a good thing.
Yeah, definitely.
So let's take a look to see what a 10th level version of this class will look like. So at 10th level, I'm thinking a 7th level monk, 3rd level of barbarian. So what the barbarian stuff would give us would be, first off, with the rage, according to the rage table, which you can find in the PHP, we actually get one more usage of the rage, and we get a +3 as opposed to a +2 for the rage damage on hit. So that's going to be a little bit better in that department. Also, we get our primal path option. There's a couple options that I think are good. I think Ancestral Guardian is a good choice. If you want to go down that route, it really allows you to help shield your allies a bit. So that's an option. What I'm thinking about doing is probably going Totem Warrior. So I can get everybody's favorite bear totem barbarian. Basically, you're going to shrug off basically any attack but psychic damage to really help fit that whole tank role quite a bit.
Yeah, that's I think that's a good choice here, especially since you're wanting to build this as a tanky type character.
And then from the next few levels of monk, we get a few things that we get. We get our extra attack at fifth level, so now we're punching twice in a turn, barring any bonus action attacks that we do. We have stun and strike, which could be pretty good, but bear in mind that stun and strike is going to be keying off of our wisdom score, pun intended. So, which we're not going to have a high score anyway. So, pair that with con saves being the most common saves in the game. Don't expect stun and strike to go off very often at all, unless you know the enemy for some reason has a very low con score.
Be very deliberate when you use your stunning strikes and make sure that they're going to count.
Yeah, honestly, in this particular build, I would probably suggest that you use your key points more so for flurry of blows, patient defense, and your hands of healing, hands of harm. I think those would be a bit more consistent in their payoffs instead of stun and strike. But there might be one or two cases once in a while that stun and strike may be good, but just keep that in mind. We also get key and power strikes, so now our fists are magical, so we don't have to worry about resistant stuff any longer. We get a few other cool stuff, so we can move faster with unarmored movement. We get evasion, slow fall, a few good stuff. We also get physician's touch, so whenever we heal somebody, we pretty much heal off either blind, deafen, paralyzed, poison, or stun, which could be very good. And if we do our hands of harm, we inflict the poison condition. So that's always good, especially considering if your GM is really running rules as written, poison condition is pretty good. Disadvantage on ability checks, attack rolls until your next turn, so that's pretty good. That's kind of like getting your patient defense off on yourself or anybody else from that specific creature. So that I feel like you're starting to really come up with a bit of a defensive buff as well as a bit of a condition effector. So that I think things are coming together pretty well now.
Absolutely, yeah. And I like the idea of having that physician's touch available, especially if you're on the front lines, even for yourself, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And just to take a bit of a HP checkup, we're looking at 109 HP at the moment with resistance to everything but psychic damage. So it's going to take the enemies quite a bit of time to really take you out as long as you're under rage. Basically, short of psychic damage and status conditions, you're going to be up for quite a while in battle.
Yeah, 109 is really good at at this level. So
So now let's take a look at a 15th level character. So we're going to be pretty much going monk for quite a bit. So we're going to 12th level of monk. And we get a few things. So first up, for the first ability score, we want to really improve our. I think improving our strength one more time would be good, just so we can have a better attacking stat. I think that would be helpful. As an 18, and then pretty much we get a couple of good stuff. Some more movement. We get purity of body, so we're immune to poison and disease. That's decent. On 11th level, we do get flurry of healing and harm. So basically, what that does is whenever we take the flurry of blows, we can replace each of the unarmed strikes, or I assume one or more of those flurry of blows with hand of healing or and or hand of harm without spending any additional key points normally required to activate them. So basically, you just need the one key point to activate flurry of blows, and you can choose to add on those two things, one or both of those things, however way you wish, for free, pretty much.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great enhancement to the hand of healing and hand of harm. This it makes it so nice.
And especially considering that at this level, our martial arts die would be considered a D8. So we're pretty much using both of these with a D8 now. So D8 plus one, which isn't too bad.
No, especially when you've been doing D6s for so long, going to a D8 is really nice.
Exactly, especially in this kind of build where we've really been extending it by 3 levels for the barbarian. But at the same time, the rage bonus does kind of help bridge the gap a bit.
Yep.
And for the 12th level ASI, what I recommend is taking another ability score and putting in instead of maxing out strength, I recommend putting it in Constitution. So that way we get a little bit more AC and a little bit more HP as well. So let's take a quick look to see what that's looking like. 18 in strength and constitution. We're looking at a 16 armor class, which is not the greatest. Fighters and paladins and full plate is going to be higher, but still 16 is decent.
Yeah.
But we're looking at 174 HP at this level, which is nearing which I think is probably closing the gap between this character and a full on barbarian. Prob Even though barbarians might have slightly more, but you're not going to be too far behind them.
Yeah, I totally agree. I like that the amount of HP that this build has at this level. I the armor class is a little low for what you're building this character for, right? To be a little bit more of a tank, and you want to be able to take some of the hits, but you do have resistance to basically everything. So even though they're going to be hitting you because you've only got that 16 armor class, you're not going to be taking as much damage. And if you've got your rage on, then even better, right? So
Yep. Yeah, and combine the fact that folks are going to be hitting you for the most part with half of their normal damage output as long as you're under rage. Combine that with the fact that barbarians do get on pretty early level on level 2 advantage on dex saves against effects that you can see as long as you're not blinded, deafened, or incapacitated. So those like fireballs, some of those dragon breaths, stuff like that, you're going to have advantage on to save for half. And if you happen to be raging, you're basically going to be taking quarter damage from several different effects.
so there are other feats and skills that you take that compensate for that lower armor class. The other thing I wanted to point out here real quick is we do have a 50-foot walking speed now, right? So unlike a barbarian, which only can do that normal 30, you're gonna be able to catch up to somebody that starts running away from you pretty quick if they don't, if you don't stop them with your patient defense. So uh, I do like that about this build too.
Yeah. Yeah, and just combine that with the fact. So, one thing that I've failed to mention is so the advantage on the dex saves versus effects that you can see and you're not incapacitated or blinded or deafened. That's another perk of starting off level 1 in Monk. You're really going to have that proficiency in dex saves to help mitigate having a low dexterity score. So, with a +7 in that save, you're going to really be able to help save against all of those dex saves quite a bit. So traps and all that stuff, you're going to be taking a lot less damage.
Agreed.
So looking at a level 20 character now. So we do have a couple of options that we could do. Um, so we definitely want to go monk or 16 levels of monk for sure. But we do have two options that we could decide, and I think both options are good. So we could go 17 levels of monk, and what that would do would give us a D10 hit die or martial arts die instead of a D8, as well as an extra key point. However, if we go fourth level, 16 levels of monk, 4 levels of barbarian, we do get another ASI. I think both options are pretty good. Personally, I might be leaning a little bit more towards getting that extra ASI,
Mm.
as there's several powerful things you could do with that.
Yeah, let's add that fourth level of barbarian then, and let's see how this turns out.
So from 16 levels of monk, we get a few things. Um, Probably one of the biggest things that we do get is from the 14th level of monk. We're now proficient in all saving throws, and whenever we make a saving throw and fail, we can use a key point and re-roll it. So that really helps out our defense quite a bit. So now we have save proficiency in like whiz saves and con saves, which are two of the other pretty nasty effects. And if we really need to make a save against a potentially disastrous effect or outcome, we can just spend a key point and have a chance of making it a game.
Right.
Also, we do get from 16th level of Monk another ASI. I'm thinking that maxing out Constitution would be a good choice here to give us more HP and a slightly better AC, even though it's 17 still not great at this level when a lot of things have like plus 14s and whatnot to hit, but still it's there in the off chance.
Right. Yeah.
From the fourth level of Barbarian, like like I mentioned earlier, we do get another ASI. So we do have a couple of options that I'm interested to see what you think about. So one option is we could max out our strength so we can hit more often and hit slightly harder. We what we could also do is we could pick up a feat, and if we do pick up a feat, a couple of feats that I'm thinking might be good could be either the alert feat if you want to be able to go ahead in initiative a little bit more. Another good potential feat, depending on how you want to play this character, is maybe the mobile feat if you really want to hit somebody and then reposition yourself to really get in somebody's way. Or the Sentinel feat, I think, could also be pretty good. I think out of those three feats, the mobile feat is probably the weakest of those three, but I think
Mhm.
it's still an option for this particular character.
Yeah, I think I would probably lean towards the feet slightly, and I would probably go with the Sentinel feet, because it plays into the idea of the tank, right? Nope, you're not running away. Guess what? Stay here. Have fun with me. And but I
Yeah,
think it's a close race. I definitely see benefits in maxing out your ASI, um, versus taking the feat, but I think I would probably take the Sentinel feat.
yeah, I think the Sentinel feat is probably the best option. Um, as the main draw to this is as long as you hit during your reactionary opportunity attacks, creature speed is 0. Now they have to attack you, and not only attacking you, but unless they have some sort of ranged attacks, they have to attack somebody that is already going to cut their attack in half pretty much just from being a raging bear totem,
Exactly.
even if they try to take the disengage action.
Yep.
And And I just thought of this, which is why I was checking out the reckless attack. If I'm reading this correctly, if you reckless attack during your turn, does that it doesn't affect your opportunity attacks, if I'm not mistaken, because that's during a separate creature's turn, same round but a different turn. So I think that might be something to keep in mind if you
Right.
think of trying to combine that with reckless attack. I don't think it works if I'm reading this correctly.
I think you are correct there. But it is a good warning, just so that you're not trying to overreach and take advantage of reckless attack.
Mm. So let's take a look at what we're working with here. So now we're 18 strength, 20 constitution. We have 251 HP, which is probably going to be the best HP in your party. I'm short of a full 20 levels of barbarian. 17 armor class. Not like I said, not going to be super great, but it's there. Going to be proficient in all saving throws. So now, basically, your lowest saving throw is going to be a +5, which isn't too bad, with the option of re-rolling it for a key point.
Right.
Advantage on dex, dex saves versus stuff that you can see, hear, and not be incapacitated to. So that's going to really help out your survivability quite a bit. You have Sentinel, so you could potentially stop people from moving. You do have a +10 to hit, dealing 1d8 +4, plus your rage damage, which at this level should be a +3, I believe. So basically a d8 +7, which you're not going to be hitting super hard as maybe your Great Weapon Master allies, your Sharpshooter allies, whatever. But your whole notion is to really help tank survive hits and stop people from moving. So dealing the biggest damage in the group isn't really your primary concern.
That is a good point. You might not be dealing the most damage with every swing, but do remember that you have the opportunity of taking pretty much 4 attacks. Your regular attack, your extra attack, your bonus action, flurry of blows, which is 2 more attacks,
Yeah.
right? So you would be swinging at least 4 times potentially on a turn, and even though you're only doing a 1d4 +4 or a 1d8 +7 if you're raging, that still kind of adds up at the end of the turn, right? Especially if you get decent rolls on those damage throws. So yes, it does mean that there's the opportunity where you hit all 4 times and only do 4 or 5 damage on each of those, right? But uh, it's you're still outputting that damage, just not as much as like you mentioned, the fighter or a barbarian.
Yeah, and just combine that with the fact that on your flurry of blows, you can for free add on your hands of harm if you want to do more damage. So there's definitely that to keep in mind with. But as mentioned, just don't expect a paladin level of damage or rogue's level of damage or anything like that.
Yep, agreed.
But all in all, I think this is definitely a build that's probably going to drive your GM up a wall in terms of trying to take you out. I think that to really take you out at this level, I think GMs are probably going to have to resort to save and throw based stuff to try to get a status effect off. But that's still going to be somewhat mitigated, like I said, because of your save and throws.
Yeah, definitely.
The one final thing that I will say though that is there is one potential thing that could change the way that you build this character. So we did start out with a 14 strength originally at level 1. If you're playing in a campaign under a GM that either allows you to buy your own magic items or it is the type of person that's really into and okay with potentially granting like your one wish magic items or something like that, the one thing that you could get is one of those belts of giant strength. Doesn't really matter which one, but it's the lowest one, which is hill giant strength. We'll set it to 21, I think, which is going to be your maxed out strength, anyways. So if by chance you happen to have a good idea that you can get one of those belts of giant strength at some point in the campaign, then I would suggest those two ASIs that were used to boost up strength, I would recommend instead of boosting up strength to boost up like Constitution first, and then eventually get like some extra levels in dexterity or the alert feat or something like that.
Sure.
So that's something to keep in mind of, and maybe if you want to play a character like this, maybe talk with your GM and see if they're willing to do that something like that or not.
That's a really good suggestion, right? If you can always keep in mind that you can augment your builds with items that are found in the campaign, uh, and so that gives you the flexibility to flip flop some of your ASIs or pick up a feat that you weren't planning on picking up. So that's a really good point.
Yeah, and as always, things like wing boots, ring of protection, all that stuff. Good magic items. Um, just again, the reason why I pointed out the belted giant strength is that they is if you get one of those, they will change the way that you take ASI. So if you do happen to get a magic item like that, just keep in mind of your build.
Yep. I,
But,
I really like this build, honestly. I think this is very intriguing. I think there's a lot of uh, good opportunity here with just having a lot of tanky fun, as you like to say. Uh, but I'm really intrigued by this build. I like it a lot.
yeah. And not only and with this build, not only can you really do good as a tank within combat, but you also do have a couple of good skills that you can use in some sort of like exploration event or RP type of event. As you do have a +8 to stealth, which is pretty good. You do have like a +7 to perception, which isn't bad. Athletics is going to be a +10, so you might be the one to really be doing all the heavy lifting in the party, literally. So there is some options for some role playing and some exploration opportunities within that as well,
Absolutely.
and especially depending on if you get some sort of interesting magic item or whatnot that could come into play there. And since we're talking about like exploration and stuff, just want to hit upon one final thing. From taking up the Bear Totem Barbarian, you do get a couple of ritual spells which speak with animals and beast sense. So that's something to keep in mind if you do happen to come across something like that within your campaign.
From experience, I can tell you that there is a ton of fun to have with Speak with Animals. So,
Indeed. So all in all, I think this is definitely a bit of fun. I think it's a different take on a tank, different take on a monk for sure. As I know, like a lot of times as a monk, you usually see like straight monks or something like that. So adding a little barbarian in there really, I think, helps, especially with the mercy monk. I think it helps to augment the damage quite a bit, as well as augment the defenses, both of which I think monks are kind of lacking a little bit. So I think all in all, this is a pretty good build. And it might be a tank build like the last deep dive character, but a different outlet to how you want to go across that tankiness.
agreed. Agreed.
So hopefully, hopefully everybody enjoys this tanky monk or bonk or whatever you wish to call this character, and may everybody who attempts to try this character have a lot of fun with it.
Absolutely.
And without hesitation, may you keep your lives geeky, YouTube.
Bye, everybody.